And if you're not keeping up with this stuff online, you're watching a completely different show. And I'm only going to say this once. I do not want to have to watch the Vile File podcast to know what really happens. Hey guys, it's Briar, and let's chat about it. So as I'm sure you all know by now, I need a silly one. Sometimes we do serious videos on this channel, and sometimes I just need to be silly. And so today we will simply just be doing that. I just wanted to chat about Love is Blind Season 8 and why it feels like it is in its biggest, floppiest of flop eras. Every single season seems worse than the last, and every time we get another season, they're like, hold my beer, don't worry, I can flop harder than you've ever seen before. And in my humble and unprofessional opinion, I feel like Love is Blind Season 8 was no exception to this rule. So if you guys simply want to rant and ramble and chitter and chatter about Love is Blind Season 8 and the flopification that we all had to watch, yeah, stick around because we're going to get into it. Obviously, we all know, like, shock horror to no one, I'm from New Zealand. I don't know these people in real life. No, I don't. But it does seem like a lot of people on TikTok do know these people in real life. Don't even worry about it, we'll get into it. But I feel like to go through the flopification of the season, we can just chat through as the show progresses. So we simply have to go back.
Let's go back to the beginning.
Because every single season, I get a fright when I see Nick and Vanessa Lachey. I forget every single season that these goofy goobers are the hosts. Truly, what are they bringing to the table? I know with, what's the one called? The Ultimatum, they always try and tie it into their real life scenario of Vanessa giving Nick an ultimatum. So, oh my gosh, of course they should be the host of the Ultimatum because Nick literally got an ultimatum from Vanessa and they're so happy now, even though they like kind of give off tense vibes and they always talk about how they were literally arguing the night before filming. But I digress. But yes, every single season I'm reminded that for some reason these people are the hosts. Honestly, I don't think the show needs a host. I honestly don't see what they bring to the table. The only real need for a host is in the reunion, and I feel like previous couples could do that or previous contestants could do that. I don't know. Is that such a crazy idea? Probably. But what I do know is every single year, Nick and Vanessa give me nothing. I just sit here and wait for them to finish chitter-chattering to the pod squads about how we're so hopeful for love. We're so excited for love. Seize the day. Follow your heart and your dreams to find your pod soulmate. And that is how every season starts. If you didn't know, now you know. Every single season goes through like 3 stages. The first is the pods, the second is the honeymoon, and the third is the living together. And I guess extra for experts is the reunion. But we always start in the pods. And how would I describe the pods? A bunch of baloney. I would describe the pods as Sabrina Carpenter nonsense because I literally don't believe a single word these people say. I literally do not even bother to memorize a single person's name. In fact, I barely remember them now. But I just know it's the same with Married at First Sight. It's the same with all of those reality shows where we meet our characters or our hopeful singles. Every time we meet them, they lie straight to our faces. They pretend like they don't have trauma and problems and they don't sabotage relationships and they're not going to flip the script the minute they get out of these pods. And they're just a bunch of liars. And well and truly, there was a meme going around with all of the men from the pods and it was literally like, you can't tell me these aren't the same man. And it's true because if you had made me take a test at the end of the pods and you were like, I will give you with my full chest, you were like, I'll give you $1 million if you can name each of these men. I'm going home empty-handed because I wouldn't have been able to do it. So what was of note from the pods of this season? Well, were they from Minnesota? Minneapolis? Mini something, right? Oh my gosh, guys, I learned something new about American geography every day. Minneapolis is a city in Minnesota. Duh, so I was right, but also stupid. So that's kind of unsurprising to all of us, isn't it now? But just like every other season in the pods, I feel like they give us so much and nothing at the same time. Like, there is so much being said, and yet I don't learn anything about these couples. I feel like we see the same conversation happen with the couple. For Joey and Monica, we just see them be silly and goofy the whole time. And yes, of course, it's slowly establishing the couples, but the thing about the pods, right, is that these interactions is what convinces them to get engaged sight unseen. And these interactions that they have with each other, plus the honeymoon, obviously, this is where they build the relationships so that when they go back to their real life and back to their friends and family, they can tell them, we built this really real connection in the pods. And I feel like as an audience, we also want to see that. In the same way, when these couples go back out to the real world and they explain it, we want to see these relationships being built. We want to see these relationships being developed. And it feels like somehow we have so many episodes in these pods, and yet you fundamentally don't learn much about anyone. And yet somehow you hear people talk about the same thing over and over again. For example, we saw Devin tell 2 women a story that he's never told anyone before, which is that he got addicted to ibuprofen because he was going through pain. And everyone watching is just like, is he saying ibuprofen because he's not allowed to say the real thing, or did he actually get addicted to ibuprofen? And then why is he telling this story to both of these women? It was just like, watching that didn't help us see Devin form a unique and one-of-a-kind relationship with Virginia, because he told the same story to the other girl, whose name I'm forgetting, I'm sorry. And equally, this season again, we spent so much time on people that don't make it past the pods. We spent so much time on Alex, Mason, Meg, and Madison, and how there was this crazy love triangle going on. But none of them ended up together. They didn't move on. They didn't pass go. They didn't collect $200. They didn't get to go to Honduras. They all broke up and they all imploded on themselves. And it was just really like bizarre and strange that we spent so much time watching this couple. And then again, throughout this season, giving airtime to these people when it's like, this isn't about you. And I just really don't think any of them particularly came off that well. Like, I'm sorry, Madison to me came across really strange because she wanted both guys to want her the most, but then got upset when Mason said he did, and got upset when she told Alex that he was her number one, and he felt bad for Mason. And when you watch these things, you almost are just wondering, are they really grasping at past seasons nachos where there was conflicts of love, where there were love triangles that naturally occurred, so they're trying to make fetch happen, but it's not going to happen? That's the only reason I can understand why they would insist on having put in this weird love triangle that didn't really matter and we could have never seen it and there would have been no different outcome. I just really don't understand if Love is Blind thinks that the only way the show is interesting is if there's a love triangle, is if there's drama, is if there's conflict, and especially when there was no conflict in the end. The conflict was very minimal. It was very much just like Madison imploding things with Mason so that he didn't end up with Meg, and then that also imploded things with Alex so Madison didn't end up with Alex. I'm really hoping that you guys have watched the show, because I'm not going to be explaining it in a sense of like, these are the people if you don't know. I'm assuming you know. Like, we all watched it, right? I'm hoping you all know who I'm talking about, otherwise I sound literally insane. It was just really strange, and I was really surprised that none of them ended up going to the next stage, because I was like, literally those were the only names I knew by the end of the pods, and those people aren't even moving on. But we did get however many couples we're supposed to get. Allegedly, not allegedly, it's true, another couple did choose each other, but they didn't get picked to go to Honduras, which is a thing that has happened in a lot of different seasons, but for some reason it's become more of a conversation more recently. I don't know, like it was definitely a conversation last season where, I can't even remember their names now, but that couple said yes to each other and they clearly didn't like each other. Like, it was just like they actually aired the fact that they weren't getting picked. But this season we found out there was another couple that didn't get picked, but we just didn't even meet them at all, which makes no sense to me. I'm like, why wouldn't you just show that other couple instead of this random love square, this love rectangle? But it does just seem strange to me that they really lock in on however many inst couples. Is it 5, 6, 4? I don't know. They just lock in on that many couples when they clearly had budget this season, because they had brand name, they had real life Billie Eilish, they had real life Ariana, well, not real life, they had actual Ariana Grande, We Can't Be Friends. Like, they had the actual songs playing the dramatic changes of scenes. They went to Honduras for their honeymoons. Like, they had budget to spend. So I don't know why they didn't just not buy a Billie song and send another couple to Honduras. Like, I just don't understand why they wouldn't pursue a couple that has agreed to go together. Even if they don't make it, like, why would we not want to find out what happens? Like, isn't this the whole point, to follow along with people and answer the question, is love blind? Do you even know what I'm saying? But yes, anyways, the pods again were boring and annoying and focused way too much on information that was irrelevant, kind of like what I do. But I'm not a professional making a Netflix show. I'm a goofy goober. Rock. And the honeymoons honestly were pretty uneventful. I'm trying to rack my brain of anything of note, but nothing really sticks out to me. So I guess this can be the time where I introduce you to the couples that made it toot sweet really quickly, in case you didn't know, now you know, kind of thing. Right, so we have 5 couples. We have Monica and Joey, and how would I describe Monica and Joey? Joey sounds like that Nick Kroll character that's like, oh my gosh, Barack Obama said no. And I don't know if that's just my head that's made that connection, but that's the only thing I could think of anytime he talks, so I'm not sure I really listened. But him and Monica are like silly goofy goober couple. He says he's very serious, but they only show silly Joey on the screen. He may be a serious guy. I personally didn't see it. And Monica seems very sweet, very nice. They're just funny, silly, goofy couple. Next we have Devin and Virginia, who Devin you will remember from a few minutes ago when I told you that he was telling Virginia and another girl about his battle with ibuprofen. And I would describe them as Virginia is slay icon queen legend the moment, and Devin is Devin. It's kind of giving that Virginia is very independent, successful, knows what she wants, and like Devin's just here. And we'll find more out about him later. And then we have Ben and Sarah. And Ben and Sarah, again, how would I describe? Sarah is a very proud ally and wants to make sure her partner is the same. And Ben doesn't know or doesn't have opinions or hasn't really thought about it. And so I'm just not really sure how they got to the conclusion that they aligned in the pods to the point of marriage. And then we have Taylor and Daniel. And Taylor and Daniel love Christmas. And strangely, after the reveal, Taylor had basically a freak out that Daniel knew her and followed her on Instagram and learned about her so that he could make her fall in love, which, if true, is psychotic, but turned out to not be true, ? So they both just love Christmas. Daniel is nice guy, and not like nice guy as a nice guy, like he is actually nice guy. And then we also had Lauren and Dave, and Dave was trying to decide between Lauren and Molly, and he picked Lauren, and it was really bizarre because he would be like, you know, me and Molly, we had so much in common. We agreed on everything. We had so many similar interests. But I love Lauren. It was I don't know why Dave picked Lauren, and I don't know if Dave does either. And I think Molly lives to regret agreeing that her and Dave are so similar as time went on. But there was really nothing of note during the reveals or the honeymoons, to be honest. It was pretty uneventful. They all were pretty excited to see each other. I'm pretty sure it was Ben and Sarah that were we look so good together. So that was notable. I do empathize with these people. It must be such a strange experience to go on a honeymoon with a stranger, because that's what they're doing, right? I can only imagine that would put you and make you feel really uncomfortable and out of your element. So I do always empathize when people have kind of a reality shock on the honeymoons, or they kind of freak out, or they don't enjoy it as much as maybe they should. But it's really after you have that shock, especially with Taylor, right? I feel that's a moment of shock, but then she recoups, she regathers, and she moves on. But it's after you have that moment of shock, then what? And I think for people that often it's you can tell it's not going to work, it's because they just freak out, shock, shut down, show their true colors. Now let's talk about Lauren and Dave first, because they're the only couple that, spoiler alert, except it's not a spoiler obviously, don't make it to the weddings, to saying I do or I zoned. And that is because Dave finds out that before the show, Lauren was having a casual relationship with a man, an FBW, if you will. And he freaks out because the person that she was casually hooking up with is friends with his friends and is making up fibs. He is making up stories because he wants to get in on the drama. He wants to get in on the show. He wants to be a part of it. But all this ultimately does is make Dave absolutely freak out, make him over and over again attack Lauren, make her feel bad, not let her meet his friends or his family, and just consistently bring up the situation but not want to do anything to resolve it. Lauren is very open and honest and very communicative about the whole situation, and David ends up looking how would I put it, a doofus, because he fumbled the ball real bad. He believed some rando guy and he completely ruined the relationship. Do I think it would have worked regardless? Probably no, because if that's his instinct, is to trust his friends hearing something from a stranger over Lauren, I don't know that was ever going to work. But also because he's just obsessed with his sister. And I get it. We love family. It's fun. We want to have good relationships with our siblings. But on this season specifically, a lot of people really valued their siblings' opinion over anyone else, over anything else. But Dave didn't even let Lauren meet his sister to get that input or advice. He just built up his sister so much to where she's on this crazy pedestal. And I don't know. I don't think Dave was there. I don't think Dave was ready. I don't think Dave connected with Lauren and had similarities with her that was important to him. And I think Dave was a doofus, and they ultimately ended because of it. And not that I think Lauren's perfect, but I think she did the best that she could in the situation that she was in. And what else are you supposed to do? She was open, she was honest, she told him the truth, and he chose not to believe it. So they ended just before the pod squad catch up. So they gave it a good few weeks, surely. But for me, this really brings up an important theme that happens throughout other seasons, but this season particularly, and that is outside narratives, outside opinions, outside stories, and social media getting involved before we even saw Love is Blind. Because obviously that person was getting involved and ended up sabotaging Lauren and Dave's Yes, Dave. Sorry, I get Dave and Daniel confused, not as people, but as names. That ends up ending Dave and Lauren's relationship, but it also comes up pretty quickly in Ben and Sarah's relationship, where someone Ben used to date did a story time and basically was like, boo, tomato, like wouldn't recommend, 0 out of 10. And Sarah chooses to believe Ben, which, I think in that situation when you know Ben and if you actually trust Ben, sure, that is the right thing to do. But was it the right thing to do factually? I don't know. But to me, the bigger problem that this highlights is that this show, like the producers and Love is Blind in general, has no control over its own narrative. But even more so, it has so many random people influencing the story, coming in with their own opinions that never even make it to the show. Like, we never see this girl or her TikTok, we never see the guy, but yet they impact the show and the story so much, and it's so annoying. Like, I'm sorry, I think yes, it's fair and valid that people, if they have bad experiences with people, they would want to share it, but it just turns the story into like a chaotic he said, she said mess. And it's like, we don't know the cast from A Bar of Soap. I don't know these people on TikTok from A Bar of Soap. So how am I supposed to differentiate who's saying what and why? And equally, it doesn't help the story. It never comes up. It never goes full circle. It just makes things really confusing and muddy. I will give it to this season that at least most things happened on camera. I feel like last season nothing happened on camera and it was just really confusing. So at least this season it happened on camera, but so many external factors were happening and influencing the story that it just feels like it gets so out of hand and out of the producer's control that they're unable to form a narrative. They're unable to tell a story. They're unable to follow these couples without all of these external influences having such a big factor and role in it, when it's like, really, how much weight and credit should we be giving to a TikTok that I never saw? Most people, I don't think they ever seen. They don't show it on the show, so we don't really know who it is, what's it about. We just know that it's having a big impact on Ben and Sarah. But anyway, before I get on a full tangent about all of my issues with the show and the storyline of it all, let's continue with the story. Back on track with one of my issues is that the whole point of this show, right, is to get married. Yet, we're not really doing anything to help these couples know if they want to get married. Like, there's a big storyline with Virginia about having a prenup, but this is not something that is initiated by production or the hosts, which, if they had relevant experience, could actually provide. But instead, that was Virginia bringing that up and becoming a storyline because she wanted to bring it up and she thinks it's a good idea to have a prenup to protect each other. But this show is not doing anything to help people know if they want to be together. They're just putting them in pods, sending them on a holiday, and then having them live in apartments together for like a month. And it's like, sure, wedding dress shopping is fun, but we have the same conversation with every single bride, and we have the same thing happen 4 or 5 times again where they try on the dress, they cry, we have the story. Like, that's all very repetitive, but that's not helping people actually figure out if they want to get married. We never have a discussion with, I don't know, a relationship therapist. We never have any discussions with, I don't know, like a lawyer and a prenup and talking about what they want. They say they have all these big conversations, but we never see them. They tell us that in the pods they talk about their beliefs and family and marriage and all of this stuff, but we never see it. And ultimately, it doesn't really feel like the show particularly cares if these people feel set up for love, if they feel like they've strengthened their relationships enough to get married. They just kind of throw them out into the deep end and say, swim to the shallow, good luck, babes. And honestly, I don't know if it would have changed the ultimate outcome of only one of these couples saying yes at the altar, but I feel like at least then it would be taking the fact that the whole point of the show is to get married at the end of it seriously, and that they were planning and preparing people to do that in a serious and genuine way. Because you can tell us as many times as you want that you have serious conversations, but we never see them, so I don't know what that looks like to you. Like, you could seriously be talking about if you prefer crunchy or smooth peanut butter. That could be serious to you. We have one of each in our house. It's that serious. But do you guys even know what I mean? Like, I just feel like they've just decided that the end goal is getting married at the end of the experiment, but they don't do anything to set it up for success or to help people know if they are truly compatible in that way and should be getting married. So let's get to the couples and their ultimate outcomes. So again, like I said, Lauren and Dave did not make it to the weddings. They kind of made it halfway through the show before Dave ultimately ended it because he was never going to get over the fact that she had a casual relationship before theirs. So let's talk about the couples that did make it to the altar. So Monica and Joey. This one was actually really sad and devastating to watch because you could see that Monica, if she knew Joey was going to say yes, she would absolutely say yes. This was definitely a situation where Monica fell for Joey a lot harder than he did for her. And again, if they had done that preparation or talking with like a relationship expert therapist, someone that genuinely helps people with that, maybe it wouldn't have changed the outcome, but then they would have at least had the relevant conversations, because throughout their relationship it felt like they were being very fun and silly and keeping it light, but that ultimately meant they did not get as deep as maybe they needed to. But also equally, another sister alert, Monica's sister, I think that it was a situation of like she was wrong in how she behaves and treated Monica, but she was right ultimately about Joey. And whether or not she was right because she had a good intuition about Joey or just because she didn't want her sister to get married before her, I guess we'll never know. But either way, this definitely caused a friction because Monica's sister did not like Joey, and that really caused a rift and friction, especially considering both of them really prioritize and appreciate and value their relationships with their family and their siblings. So for Joey to not be liked by Monica's sister, whether it's because of jealousy, resentment, or she genuinely did catch a vibe about Joey, maybe porque no los dos, pourquoi pas les deux, if you will. And it possibly could have been why Joey was guarded towards Monica and didn't allow himself to go that deep. But you do just wonder, like, if there were professionals there to support them and help them talk through these situations, would they have been able to resolve it? I guess we'll never know, but that would have been something that would have helped them talk about it in a safe space and actually get to the root of the situation. But either way, we get to their wedding and it was really sad to watch because you know that if Monica thought for a second that Joey was going to say yes, she would have said yes, but because Monica knew he was going to say no, she said no and he agreed, concurred, whatever. And so that was really the end of it for them. But anyway, moving on to Virginia and Devin. Now, like I said, Virginia is a very smart and successful and independent woman, and she knew what she wanted, and she wanted someone that had the same political, religious values. And it was very clear that whilst, yes, they both had the same religion, that made them come to different conclusions politically. And whilst Devin didn't see this as being a very big issue, Virginia ultimately did. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised that she said no to him, but it does ultimately make sense, and I do think it was the right decision. And I honestly just think she would have felt like she was compromising things that were really important to her if she said yes to Devin. But I think ultimately she also just wanted someone a little bit more sure of themselves, as well as someone who aligned with her both politically and religiously. So then we have Ben and Sarah, and again it felt very similar to the Virginia and Devin situation where the women felt really strongly about their beliefs. I think a lot of people felt like Sarah really went on about it and really went on at Ben about what his church believes, what he believes, how he feels about political and social situations. But I think if you reflect on it, it's because she's trying to find the answer to things that are deal breakers for her, and he was being quite blasé about them. He would be like, I don't know what my church believes about gay marriage. I don't know. They say love everybody. And it's just like, it just really didn't pass the sniff test, if you know what I mean. And I think ultimately Sarah knew that was the reason, and was trying to get him to say the right answer, or was trying to get him to reflect harder on his beliefs, and he just didn't. And so they also ultimately, he said yes and she said no. And I was honestly less surprised about this one than Devin and Virginia, and it again did feel like the right answer, because it's like you're asking people to compromise on like things that they truly believe to their core. Like, this is not like are you a coffee or tea person? These are very serious core values, which I don't know, if you ask me, I thought we figured out in the pods, but either way, they did ultimately become deal breakers. And then the last couple we had was Daniel and Taylor, and I truly believe Daniel and Taylor got the Brett and Tiffany treatment, where it's like these producers or story writers or whomstever don't know how to tell a good love story, because they really struggled to even show us them. Like, they barely, I feel like every time I saw Daniel and Taylor, I forgot about them, because they forgot to show us their story, and kind of don't know how to show a good story, because they really didn't have any issues. Their families aligned, they really connected, and they both said yes, and they were the only couple to say yes at the altar. And it always just really makes me wonder, like, imagine if, like, statistics exist, right? Imagine a world where every single couple is a Daniel and Taylor. I don't know if the show would know how to cope with that. I don't know if the show would know what to do if people just found their person and stayed unproblematic. Like, would they know how to show us a love story? Would they know how to show us these cute moments, these real moments, these wholesome moments? Or would they just kind of struggle? And I feel like they would struggle, because they always seem to struggle when they just have one couple like this in the show. But I will give them credit for the wedding episode, where they definitely did less flashbacks than they used to. I still watched it on 1.5 speed, but they did at least try to show more of the behind the scenes. But even in that respect, it felt really repetitive. It felt like we watched 4 grooms and 4 brides have the same conversation over and over and over again. And it just felt really repetitive, and we were just kind of like, okay, let's get to the answer. Like, it didn't build suspense, it just felt like Groundhog's Day. But anyway, let's move on to the reunion, which I'm also always very hesitant about, because that's when we have to hang out with Nick and Vanessa for an hour. And I will give it to Vanessa, unless I blacked it out, she didn't ask anyone about babies, because she used to have a really bad habit of being like, who's having a baby? Who's having the first Love is Blind baby? I need a Love is Blind blah, blah, baby. Vanessa, I don't think you're actually in these people's real lives. Let's stop pushing people to have babies. Let's stop pressuring. It's just not appropriate. So at least she didn't do that. But once again, this reunion had the Meg, Madison, Alex and Mason situation come in, and I'm like, I don't know if they thought the audience would care more about this situation than we did, but they insisted on having them there as well as our 5 couples. And I always feel so conflicted about these reunions, because yes, they do ask some relevant questions, but it just feels like the ratio of nonsense to relevant info is kind of not right, because they had this like top 5 Love is Blind moments ever, and the fact that they didn't even include Shake saying maybe love is not blind but it's blurry. Like, I'm sorry, that is what I will always think of as Love is Blind. Or the freaking cuties when they were talking about the mandarins, like, that was crazy. Why are we talking about, what's his name, Jimmy? Why are we talking about Jimmy so much? He came up on my TikTok about it. Why are we having a top 5 moments? I don't know. Again, as well, like, I'm just personally not invested in other seasons people. They had AD, who was from another season. She got engaged to a guy from Love is Blind UK, and AD and Ollie. And I'm like, that's really super nice for them. I just like don't care. Respectfully. I don't follow them. I didn't even know they were dating. Now they're engaged. Like, that's lovely. Love that for them. I love. But we're here for the season 8 reunion. And I feel like that is not relevant to the story. But anyway, we have the kind of usual, like, what happened after the fact. And it was really interesting, because I feel like Dave, he really did own the fact that he messed up and he let other people change his opinion. But a lot of people just felt like they were just saying what we wanted to hear. Like they knew they weren't going to come off well, so they were just saying things to say it. Especially Ben, like he was just like, yeah, I didn't know the answers about my church and I didn't want to, or I knew it wasn't going to be a good answer, so I just kind of didn't say the answer. And it was like, well, at least you're being honest about that. But I feel like in the same way you were telling Sarah that you didn't know what your beliefs were, you're just telling us again what we want to hear. And it just felt very PR. Again, for some reason, they thought we would care more about the Meg, Madison, Mason, Alex situation. Like, I'm not trying to be a hater, even though I've spent however many minutes ranting about Love is Blind, but pulling the screenshots out of the armpit of the dress, I don't think it gave what I think Madison hoped it would. And maybe some people really liked that moment, but I just found it odd. Like, I just found it like she just really wanted people to hate Alex and to call out Mason and to call out these guys who she felt wrongly done by, and she really wanted to show that Alex was talking about other people behind their back to her. But I can't help but wonder, like, if Alex is talking about Mason to you, is he genuinely just saying these things unprovoked? Or are you both having a little bit of a gossip and like now you're just ripping the rug under from him because you want to call him out? I think I'm going to call him out. I don't know. Just feel like a lot of people felt underwhelmed by the screenshots, like they didn't really prove anything, and it just kind of didn't make Madison look like she had the redemption arc that she was hoping for. And from what I've heard online, again, we'll get to it, like Alex is not a good person. You end up looking like you're on their level when you're just like nitpicking, calling them out, using things that they said about someone, a year ago against them. And you did this for what? I think the funniest thing to me from the reunion was Virginia's like, I don't want to put words in Devon's mouth and say what he believes, but I believe in LGBTQ plus rights. I believe in abortion rights. I believe in all of these things. I believe that you can be religious and have these political beliefs. And we just didn't align on that. And Devon was like, I just don't think we have to agree. And so it's like, oh, so you do believe those things. Okay, cool. But yeah, honestly, I don't think we got too much new information. We did get a slay Alex Warren performance at the end of it. Like, it was super random, and apparently lots of people didn't know who he was before this, which I'm like, where have you been? But this really brings me to my final rantifications of it all, and that is like, before the reunion even started, we had so many people popping off. We had so many people going on podcasts, sharing things, reposting stories. Like, it was out of control. And I'm only going to say this once. I do not want to have to watch the Vile File podcast to know what really happens. I do not want to have to follow every single person on Instagram to know what people feel. And I think, honestly, yes, it's a reflection that people want every little bit of information out and they want to have the last word. But I also think it's a reflection of the fact that Love is Blind is not good at telling the story. Because it was like Virginia and Devon were doing a lot of reposting on their stories. And I just feel like if they were confident in the show's ability to tell the story and to show a narrative, like, we wouldn't need this weird reposting, these snide remarks, going on random podcasts. Like, we wouldn't need all of that. But because the people on the show are so unconfident in their story being told, or they feel like they need to tell their story and they need us to know every single detail of their story, like, there's so much extra stuff going online, and if you're not keeping up with this stuff online, you're watching a completely different show. And it honestly doesn't even really make sense without watching everything online. I don't even think I've kept up with half of what's going on online. And I feel like it shows. I feel like I have so many gaps in understanding of who these people are, what they're really like, what really happened, because the show was so unable to tell a good story and to show a good narrative and show us who these people are. And so a reaction of that is all of these people are going online, sharing all this information, trying to go on the reunion with screenshots in their armpits to tell their story, but it ends up just being chaotic because instead of having a clear storyline following through episodes, we have a million different people and a million different platforms sharing a million different pieces of information, and you feel like you can't keep up. So you just have no idea what's going on. And I just wanted to show you guys just a couple of TikToks explaining and giving an example of this, just so you guys know what I mean and so you know how much has gone on social media or outside of what is shown on Netflix in those episodes.
It's simply not enough to watch Love is Blind. You must be participating online. Here are some of the things I've seen come up since the wedding episode. First off, Virginia reposted this story from her friend who I guess is this person who was at the wedding. Me ugly crying because I thought my girl was going to say yes to a dusty trumpet that had her pay for every single meal. The reposts are so interesting because it's saying something without saying something. Another repost from the same friend. Fake tears at the altar really pissed me off. I had to rewind 10 times and I still didn't find a single drop. This friend even tagged Devin. It seems like Virginia is just pissed that Devin came out kind of looking like a, oh, woe is me kind of guy, when she didn't really do anything wrong. She followed the premise of the show as intended. You also might have missed Taylor from last season posting about how her and Garrett actually got a prenup, but it was never shown on camera. Just another reminder that we see like a very small fraction of what's presented to us in the edit. There's so much more to these stories. We're getting a very surface level look. In that same vein, a bunch of deleted scenes from this season were released online. A lot of clips of Taylor and Daniel, Ben meeting Sarah's parents, and this one was most interesting, Monica meeting Joy's friends. The previous video goes into detail on that if you want to know more. But yeah, look at how much footage there is of stuff we don't see, and then there's also not footage of things that we don't see. I feel like I'm collecting more context with each post that I see. Why do I feel like more drama happened off-camera postseason than during the actual season? We've got Joey DMing Madison, the note from the ex on the nightstand, all of the conversations that Devin didn't want to have on camera, them kind of not breaking up, and him probably gonna go to Nashville and then removing her from Find My Friend. I feel like I got more plot and more storyline out of that like first hour of the reunion than I did this entire season. And this is something I keep talking about, but I think that stems from the issue of having to like cover so many couples at once, and in doing so you really only focus on like one aspect of this couple. You know, with like the golden couples like Taylor and Daniel, it's always kind of like surface level, like, oh, tacos and Christmas, you know, like Monica's sister, Ben's beliefs, Devin's shoe collection, Dave's sister. It's once we get to the reunion and start hearing about all these, you know, post-game kind of stories that you realize how much nuance there is to the narrative of each relationship. No, Sarah's entire personality was not politics. No, Joey was not 100% golden retriever energy. For as many times as this cast seemed to like see each other at the bars over the past year, I wish they brought a cameraman. Like, give me a post-game update. Flesh out these stories. I would rather see that than prenup combo 947. Thanks.
I'm back as the only qualified person to talk about Love is Blind Season 8 because I know people on the show. I'm from there, and a lot of people like to talk at the bars and then tell me, so I'm gonna dump out all the fun stuff for you for the finale. Madison was shown so much in the beginning because she's gonna be new season of Perfect Match because Netflix had to make sure we knew who she was when she's going into the show, so she got her slow-mo intro. So honestly, good for her. And Ben was basically trained in PR before he went on the show, and that's why he answered every question that was important with either, I don't know, or I don't remember, because he was mastering the art of sitting on the fence. So much so that during his one-on-one interviews, he'd be physically twitching and moving so much because he was trying not to answer those questions because he was uncomfortable. And that's why we had so many of these discussions between these two, because the producers were there making them have those conversations because Ben didn't ever have an answer and they needed to get one out of him. Spent the entire summer bragging about how much FaceTime he was going to get on the show because that was his goal the entire time, to be as agreeable as he could be, to get all the way to the end, to get kickstart his influencer career that failed before. But I don't know, Ben, have you ever tried being interesting? Dave didn't tell his family until the day before he left for filming that he was going on the show, and that doesn't sound like someone who values their sister's opinion. He even spent the entire summer last year being sad about how Lauren screwed him over until we all got to watch this masterclass in fumbling. These two apparently spent the entire year together for clout, basically being like, look, the experiment does work, but nobody was buying it immediately. From what I've been told from friends and friends, these two are legitimately made for each other, and I'm happy for them.
And honestly, there was so much more. There were very serious allegations about Alex and SA. All of this stuff, it's exhausting. This show feels exhausting to watch because when you watch the show, you're like, I feel like I know nothing about these people. I feel like no story has been told. And then when you go on social media, you're like, I am overwhelmed by all of this insane information that I am finding out because of the Vile File podcast. Please give me strength. Equally, if the stuff about Alex is true, like, should never have gone on that show. Like, it's just so insane to me. And then I'm just like, literally, what did I watch? What did I watch? Why did I watch it? I don't know what happened. I'm not going to follow any of these people. I insist on watching every season, and yet I never have fun. And yet I'm going to do it again when they're in bloody Colorado. I'm going to watch 10 million billion people talk about mountain biking and skiing and expensive coffee. And I'm never going to learn my lesson. I'm going to keep watching this silly show. I'm going to keep complaining. I'm going to keep asking why Nick and Vanessa Lachey are here. And nothing's going to change. So really, I'm the sucker. And Netflix has me around their finger. Honestly, I feel like I've definitely ranted about this show for way too freaking long, and there's probably a million things I could have ranted about and didn't, but I just really wanted to have a yap, a chat, a gossip with you guys about this show and the major floppification it's going through. So please let me know what you think. Please let me know in the comments down below. I need to know. I'd love to know. You guys are always so much smarter and more insightful than me, so please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you stayed until the end, you are a real one. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to keep up with me between my uploads, I'm on TikTok and Instagram, freaking out about Love is Blind apparently, and I'll link my vlog channel down below, and YouTube should be recommending another one of my videos on the screen right about now. But don't you worry guys, because I'm not funny there either. Bye.